Multiplying and dividing fractions. Multiplication is probably the easiest operation to perform on fractions. Simply multiply the numerators and denominators to get the resulting fraction. We can see the general situation for multiplying fractions in example 1. So we multiply across the numerators, a times c, and across the denominators, b times d, bd. And that's how we multiply in the general form. If there are common divisors in the numerator and the denominator, then the answer will need to be rewritten in lowest terms. Let's look at example 2. So here we have 3 times 2, that's 6, and 8 times 9, that's 72. And 6 and 72 are both divisible by 6. So 6 divided by 6 is 1, and 72 divided by 6 is 12. So we can see here that 3 and 9 are both divisible by 3, and 2 and 8 are both divisible by 3. They don't need to be in the same fraction. However, we can also do that work first, or before performing the multiplication, prior to performing the multiplication in example 3. So in this one, it's the same problem as we had in example 2, but we can say, all right, 3 divided by 3 is 1, 9 divided by 3 is 3, 2 divided by 2 is 1, 8 divided by 2 is 4. Now we multiply 1 times 1 to get 1 over 4 times 3 to get 12. I think it's actually easier to do that rewriting in lowest terms before we get to the multiplication, but you can decide for yourself. When it comes to dividing fractions, things aren't much more difficult, but we do need to remember a couple things. There really isn't a method for dividing fractions or a procedure, so there's no method for doing it. Instead, we have to rewrite the problem in an equivalent form. Equivalent. So this is the same, its value is the same, it means the same thing, but it's different. Let's have a look at a couple basic examples to see this idea. Examples 4 and 5. So here we have 16 divided by 2 is 8. And similarly, we can think of this as 16 times 1/2 is 8. So notice that here we were dividing by 2, now we're multiplying by 1/2. And you probably can think of that as something that makes sense to you. Down below, 27 divided by 3, that's 9. But we can also think of this as 27 times 1/3. So this might make more sense to you than, might make sense to you to think about, well, division and multiplication, they're really closely related. And that's what we're going to be looking at in just a moment. Now let's have a look at the general situation in example 6. So in example 6, what we can actually do is we take that first fraction, the a over b, and it stays the same. We change from division to multiplication, and then we take the second fraction and we write its reciprocal. A reciprocal means that we take the numerator and denominator and we flip them around. So it's going to be d over c. And then, I'm sorry I didn't give you enough room here. That's going to be equal AD over BC. Sorry about that. Maybe I'll make that a little bigger when before I hand it out to you. So you see, in order to divide two fractions, we leave the first fraction, the dividend. You don't need to know that word, but we'll use it. So the dividend down here was the A over B. Change the division to multiplication. And then write the reciprocal, we flip that fraction upside down, of the divisor. Now we have rewritten the division problem as a multiplication problem. Let's look at a few examples. So again, we take the first fraction, 2/3. Oh, let's write it down below. 2/3. We change the division to multiplication. And so that's the dividend. It stays the same. Change the division to multiplication. And take the reciprocal of the divisor. Now I see that the 2 and the 4 can both be written in, they both have a common divisor. And the 3 and the 9 both have a common divisor. So now we multiply 1 times 3, and we get 3 over 1 times 2, and we get 2. Here, we take the dividend, 5/7, change the division to multiplication, and then we take the divisor's reciprocal, 2 over 1, multiplying across the top, across the numerators, we get 10. Multiplying across the denominators, we get 3. And there's our answer. Next example. We take our dividend, 2/5, change to multiplication, and then the reciprocal of the divisor is 3 over 6. Now here, again, 2 and 6 are both divisible by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Multiplying across the numerators, we get 3. Multiplying across the divisors, we get, oh, yeah, okay, 5 times 3 is 15. Now, both of those are divisible by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 5 divided by 3 is 5. So what I could have noticed right here, I could have rewritten that as 1/2. Well, and I could have rewritten this as 1 over 1, really. Once it was 3 over 3, I could have said, oh, that's just 1, really. All right, let's see. And that is it for multiplying and dividing fractions.